Hi, can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, that's
Good,
good.
thank you.
So hi, my name is Aksa.
My name is
Oh,
Shopi.
My name is Ayan.
hi.
So if it's okay with you, we can start the interview right now.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. So, well, to start off, thank you for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. And I was just wondering if you could tell us your name and just a little bit about your journey so far. I am aware that you are in college currently, so just how you deal with the stress and pressures of being in college, especially with COVID.
Yeah, sure. Before I begin, I just want to mention that I stutter, so some things may take me longer to say, but I will eventually get them out. Well, since my name is Will, I am a rising senior at Washington University in St. Louis. I co-founded XpressDx when I was a freshman in college, and we ran some proof of concepts back then that unfortunately failed. I've continued to work on the technology since then, and will continue to do so until I succeed. And the background on why I started XpressDx is the reason that I will keep working on XpressDx and a genetic screening diagnostic technology until I'm done. So when I was in high school, I went to high school in New York City, and I was fortunate enough to be part of an 18 student program that spent half of every academic day at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City doing research. And for my junior and senior year of high school, I was doing research in a Parkinson's lab. And the Parkinson's lab focused on the main gene that causes familial or inherited Parkinson's. And familial Parkinson's accounts for, I think, 40% of all Parkinson's cases, although don't quote me on that, I'm not entirely sure. But it's, I think, around 40%. And I started to wonder, why can't we make a diagnostic test for, well, that can tell people if they have this gene, PARK2, which causes Parkinson's. And PARK2 is one of the very few genes that has a 100% causation rate. So if you have PARK2, you will develop Parkinson's. And that's part of why I wanted to make a diagnostic, because that'd be very helpful information. Because everyone, as you all know, well, they're generally born with the genes that they're going to have for the rest of their life. Some mutations can happen and do happen, and epigenetics occurs, which changes your genome. But if you can get tested as a child to see if you have the PARK2 gene, then there are things that you can change some in your life, but also just generally be more prepared when you're older to develop Parkinson's. As humans, we are predisposed to thinking that we have a lot of time left. And if you stop thinking that you have a lot of time left, and you know that in your mid 60s, you might be more limited than you think that you will be or plan to be, then you might change how you live the beginning and middle part of your life. You might retire a bit early, take more time with family. So it would be important to have diagnostics like this. So I started working on XpressDx and on the rapid point of care genetic diagnostic tool the summer before my freshman year of college. I then continued that once I got to school and was the co-project leader for for a team that was part of a biotechnology incubator that was affiliated with Washington University in St. Louis, which is called Sling Health. But 2 weeks into my freshman year of college, my grandmother died from Parkinson's. So I was motivated to continue with the development of the technology in her name. and to help families like ours and people like my grandmother. So I kept going. The proof of concept failed first semester. I mean, well, so it failed our freshman year, but then I reworked the technology the summer before my sophomore year. And then winter break my sophomore year, my grandfather died from Parkinson's. So in his name and in my grandmother's name, I continued with the technology, and that's why I will keep working on the technology until I get it right, because this is very important to me. But when the pandemic hit, I realized that the rapid point of care genetic screening diagnostic technology that I'd been working on for the past 3 years since my freshman year could be repurposed for a rapid point of care COVID-19 diagnostic. And once I realized that, I started to rework a pitch for XpressDx and reach out to potential investors and people who have access to labs to try and develop a proof of concept for the technology and get the technology out to people. Because as all of you know, there is a severe shortage of COVID diagnostics right now. But to answer your question more directly, well, how do you pronounce your name, Aksa? Is that?
You did it really well. It's Aksa.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Well, so to directly answer the second part of your question about just college stress, especially during the pandemic, it's not easy to handle. It's in my case, specifically at Washington University in St. Louis, we were actually on our spring break when we got the email from WashU that we weren't allowed back on campus and weren't going to be back on campus for the rest of the semester. So I had said goodbye to my friends and my girlfriend while I was with her. I said goodbye to my friends for a week. I didn't intend to say, it wasn't a goodbye that was supposed to last 5-6 months until I saw them again. So that was hard, and it's definitely a change, as I know all of you went through, going from in-person classes to going to an online curriculum. But a big part of college and high school, but more of an extent, I think, in college, part of the reason that college is said to be the best 4 years of someone's life is because of the experience of being in person at college with all of the people of your same age and who are as motivated as you and who want to succeed, and with your professors and the research that's happening. That's part of the whole experience. So that was lost when we went online. Now, hopefully that comes back in the fall, but losing that did add, it definitely added some stress. I'm fortunate that I wasn't a senior this past year, because that would have been more stressful trying to go into a job market when the job market was closed, basically, and there were very few jobs to take. But I guess that for anyone who's going into college, as you all are, or is in college and moving forwards, the advice that I would give, I guess, is just think of this like this is one of the challenges that we're going to face, which is going to define our time in part, but also just going to help us learn what really matters and what we really care about. College is a place to find yourself and figure out what you want to do and what you really care about, and how you want to go on into the world post-college. about what matters, like a global pandemic. So while yes, it is very scary, it does add a lot of stress. There are some small, there are some things that can be seen as small positives that can come from this that we can all use as we head towards a new normal. But it's definitely it's definitely not easy, but you can go into college or be in college thinking of the problem as this huge problem that is going to ruin the rest of your college career, which I don't think it has to. And if you go in with that approach, it might. Or you can think of this problem as something that will make it a more interesting 4 years than it was going to be to start with. And that, I think, is the better approach to going with.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
Why do you feel something like XpressDx is necessary for our society, and do you think you'll continue with that after college?
Thank you for the question. So I think that XpressDx is necessary for a couple of reasons. Right now, if you want to get a COVID test, if you go to a Walgreens or a CVS or a hospital, if they're doing it in your area, you can get a test. You can get a test with a nasal swab, which is uncomfortable, but that's fine. That's a small price to pay. But then you'll have to wait. Right now, about 10 days on average, 7 to 10 days. If you're in a hospital, you can get results back within 24 hours. But if you aren't in a hospital, it takes 7 to 10 days, maybe even more right now. That's not a helpful timeline. A 7 to 10 day timeline is not conducive to safely and permanently reopening the economy or easing the extreme burden on the healthcare system that we're facing right now. And if, as businesses start to reopen, and well, under current CDC guidelines, while you're waiting for a test, you're supposed to quarantine yourself. If test takes 7 to 10 days, you then have any of the employees in a business or healthcare workers in a hospital or public school teachers in schools having to stay at home for 7 to 10 days straight because they don't know if they have the virus. That's not an actionable timeline, and we need actionable timelines. If we don't get an actionable timeline, it'll be much harder to identify outbreaks quickly. And as we all know, if you don't identify an outbreak quickly, it becomes a much bigger outbreak. So the faster testing that we get, which is point of care, the faster point of care testing that we get, the faster we'll be able to identify outbreaks, and therefore the smaller the outbreaks will be. And the sooner and safer we can reopen the economy, and hopefully the better chance we'll have of it permanently reopening, instead of, as we're seeing in Florida and Texas and in Arizona, in this fluctuating state of reopening and then closing again, and then maybe reopening soon if they fix stuff. But that's not helpful. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, that was very interesting. So being able to identify outbreaks is an incredibly important skill. But my question for you is, how does XpressDX's COVID-19 diagnostic test even work? What is the technology? How does it function?
So thank you for that question. The technology at the basis of the XpressDx test, excuse me, is CRISPR. CRISPR, as many of you may know, is a hot topic in biology right now. It's best known as a gene editing tool. So CRISPR can be used to go in and to edit the genome of mice for research, or theoretically humans for therapeutics. But that is not what XpressDx uses CRISPR for. CRISPR can also be used in diagnostics. And CRISPR diagnostics is a growing field right now that XpressDx is very happy to be a part of. If you think of CRISPR like the find tool in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, the find tool can identify a word in a document and tell the user how many copies of that word exist in the document. And that's similar to how CRISPR works in diagnostics. CRISPR is very versatile and programmable, which means that scientists can tell CRISPR to go search for essentially whatever gene we want it to go search for. And then CRISPR will go and try and find that gene. And CRISPR can tell us if the gene exists, and depending on the diagnostic system, also how many copies of that gene there are in a specific sample. So COVID is an RNA virus, but with techniques like reverse transcriptase PCR or LAMP amplification, the RNA in the RNA virus can be converted into DNA, and then the CRISPR can be programmed to go search for the DNA that came from the RNA virus. And then if that DNA is present, the XpressDx test will be able to produce a positive test result, because the person who's the test is being run on will have the COVID RNA. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does. I think that idea is ingenious to utilize CRISPR in such a capacity. And your analogy was really great because it really helped us understand compared to Google Docs. Do you think this technology has the capability to be applied to the diagnosis of other diseases?
Yes, it does. And that's one of the, well, as I first mentioned, first developed the technology for Parkinson's. So because CRISPR is so programmable, because CRISPR works with a guide RNA sequence, and that guide RNA can be changed to whatever scientists want it to be, CRISPR diagnostic could be programmed for Parkinson's, or could be programmed for any number of diseases, as CRISPR could be primarily used for diseases that stem from one gene or one mutation. When you get into diseases like cancer that have a large multitude of genes that are all interacting with each other at the same time to cause cancer, a CRISPR diagnostic could be used, but would have to identify each gene separately, and then some more advanced analysis of the data would have to be done to see if we can tell how much, to what percent each gene is on, and then use scientific data to see, based on the percentiles of how much each gene is cause cancer or not. And I realized that what I just said is confusing because CRISPR and cancer diagnostics is a difficult topic. And we're all still trying to figure that out in the CRISPR diagnostics field. But it is a very interesting application of CRISPR diagnostics.
So, the field of CRISPR diagnostics and other genetic technology, in correlation with a lot of rapidly advancing other types of technology, such as the implementation of artificial intelligence, these are a lot of developments that have recently begun to be added into healthcare and in correlation with a lot of the already existing technologies, but they're felt to be a little controversial because it feels to take away from the humanity of the field itself. However, a lot of researchers are saying that it's a good thing that all of these advances are going to let us be able to cure a lot of diseases that before we thought were completely a death sentence. How do you feel about a lot of these technologies, and how do you think healthcare will progress within the next 30 to 50 years?
Well, yeah, thank you for the question. So yes, it is a very good question, something that scientists have to think about of the ethics of what they're doing. I very much enjoy to debate bioethics. I find it fascinating, and I try to incorporate that as much as I can when making decisions for XpressDx and talking to other people about the company. But with all advancements in healthcare and in technology in general, and with the best advancements, there is a great potential to use it for extreme good. But as with everything, there has to be a balance for something to be to have the potential to be used for extreme good. It can also be used for extreme evil. But that is where my faith in the regulatory process comes in and soothes me. Throughout history, we can see that if someone is committing a great evil using some kind of technologies, or just in general committing a great evil, that eventually the proper authorities or the rest of the world, if necessary, will step in to try and stop that. And with all of the current concerns around CRISPR and AI in healthcare, there will be a lot of very stringent regulation, which I think can be good, because they will ensure that the CRISPR and therapeutics, and to a lesser extent CRISPR and diagnostics, because that's not as dangerous, but CRISPR and diagnostics as well, are used safely and are used in an ethical manner, and that AI is used safely and in an ethical manner. The thing that politicians and scientists have to come together on and cooperate on and be careful about is that if there are restrictions that are too stringent, it might limit the ability of the science to help certain people to cure disease. Because again, XpressDx does not use CRISPR in therapeutics, and the CRISPR that we have in our diagnostics is in vitro. So XpressDx would take a saliva sample or a blood sample and run that through our test. So the CRISPR that we have can never affect the user of the test. But for CRISPR and therapeutics, it has a lot of potential to cure diseases, but also a lot of potential to be used for some things that would be that'd be ethically terrible, for people to just choose what kind of babies that they want to have. I don't believe that that's an ethically well, I don't believe that it's ethically permissible to pick the qualities of your child before birth. But that's again where the regulations will come in. And I do believe that it's worth the national debate. I believe that the benefits in healthcare that we can get from CRISPR and from AI is worth the national debate about what we need the regulations to be. And it's going to be a very fun national debate to be part of, and heated as the best ones are, but it is needed and it's worth it, because we didn't think a decade ago that we could cure a number of genetic diseases, because that's really hard to do. But now we're looking at this fantastic technology that might be able to do it for us, to cure some of these diseases. And we need to at least give it the consideration of having a national debate about it, and not just say that it's too scary. Because I think that wouldn't be doing, that saying that's too scary wouldn't be doing justice to to our goal as humanity to try and help everyone, all of our citizens, to the best of our ability. I think CRISPR is the newest piece to the equation of what is the best of our ability, and we have to give it the proper consideration. And sorry, to answer the second part of your question, what will healthcare look like in 40 to 50 years? I think it's going to be more decentralized, so that there's going to be more testing at home, so more at-home diagnostic tools, more at-home screenings that can be done. So maybe some medical equipment in the home, or that your iPhone will be strong enough and with the capabilities and the research to do some screening. There was a company, I think, in Israel that could perform full body screens of patients, and based off of the full body screens, give a list of diagnostics about the patient and how healthy they are and what diseases they are susceptible to and to what percent. So if a technology like that could be brought into the house, then then diagnostics could happen faster on a more regular basis. And then you would only have to go into a doctor if you knew that something was wrong, and a lot more preventative medicine would be able to to happen and to occur. Obviously, there's also the cost considerations. There are stark inequalities in healthcare right now that have to be solved before we can really push forwards, because if we push forward with technology as a nation, but we're leaving behind 70+ percent of the population, we're not really doing a good job pushing forward with technology. We have to bring everyone, or a lot more than just 30% of people, with us to be able to say that we're really bringing the whole country forward with us. But I think that's going to be a lot more at-home diagnostics and preventative medicine, and the decentralization of having to go have a doctor checkup just to see if everything's working will hopefully lower prices and costs.
So I love the innovations that you're making through your work in technology. Now, regarding this, many teenagers, young adults, and even children dream of making a meaningful change in the world. However, they usually feel that they are too young or don't know enough to be able to do so. Is there any message that you would like to tell them in regards to making change?
Yes, yes. So, like that question too. I I am currently and will be for a while facing the well the unique situation of a lot of people are going to think that I am too young or very young, so I don't know a lot. But and there are a lot more things for me to learn. I realize that. But if you're passionate about something, passion, I think, is all that you need. A lot of people, when I was starting Xpress-DX, were asking me, I was ready to start this because I was starting this with some fellow freshmen and some graduate students, but the fellow freshmen were asking me, shouldn't we wait 3 years to try this when we know more stuff, when we can have a bigger impact? And my response to them was, don't we owe it to the people that we might be able to help to start now, to try happen, but at a college university with access we have Google at our fingertips to research stuff and read scientific articles and start to have innovations and thoughts. So who says that we're too young to try and start coming up with solutions to problems? If we're old enough to be in school and to learn what they want to teach us, we're also old enough to learn about topics that interest us, and then to try and dive deep enough to develop opinions and ideas of our own. And in developing opinions and ideas of our own is where we can help people. In my personal opinion, I want to be I am an entrepreneur. I want to continue to be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life. So I love the entrepreneurial process and and innovation, and that's what I see myself making the biggest difference. But I think that as long as you're passionate about something, your age won't hold you back, or it will only hold you back if you let it hold you back. As well, I'll finish it.
I think that is some really great advice, because I feel a lot of people become disheartened when they feel that they're too young to try to achieve this goal that they're really passionate about, which is why I think what you're doing is really inspiring to anyone, even if we are still in high school. And to kind of just end everything on a lighter note, I was wondering what has been your favorite aspect of working on XpressDx, and if you had a chance to redo this entire project again, what would you change?
Hmm. I I've my favorite part of being part of XpressDx is the people that I've met, the people that I've interacted with, and just the experiences that I had. As a freshman in college, I never thought that I'd be a co-lead for a 7-person team, 3 of whom were grad students, or that I'd be meeting with potential investors and having and having discussions, or that I would become the head of research and development for a startup. But it's just, I got all those experiences and I learned a lot about leadership, a lot about business just from doing it. So learning stuff in classes is great. but going out and having the experience of it is fantastic. So that's what I like the most. Just the experience of starting out with XpressDx. It's what showed me that I wanted to do entrepreneurship, which I've kept doing. If I could redo the process, I'd probably, well, I don't think that I needed the motivation of 2 of my grandparents dying. I think I probably could have done without that. But I think that there's a lot of advice that I would give myself now, but I learned all of that advice because I went through the process the first time. So, I know everything now, if I went back, that well, there are things that I would change about my approach, and I can write all that up. But if I didn't know anything that I knew now, but I was doing it again, I would do it the exact same way. Because it's just throwing yourself in there and trying your best and reading things that people who have already tried it have written and reading their advice, and then learning from all of the mistakes that you will inevitably make along the way. And that is the best advice that I would give myself when I was, well, if I was restarting, is just keep learning from your mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you aren't making mistakes, you aren't learning anything. Yeah, so yeah, that's the biggest piece of advice that I would give.
Well, that concludes our interview. Thank you so much for being part of this. We really appreciate it.
Of course, yes. And thank you for reaching out. And good luck to all of you. And good luck in college next year. It'll be an interesting first year.
Good luck to you on your project, and I hope you succeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Same.
Okay, thank
Same.
you.
Well, yeah, of course. And stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe. Bye.